and take it from there. So, the thing that I think is so interesting about this time of year, and definitely this time of year in the online space, is how pressured it can feel to have like the perfect plan, to have it all laid out, or to maybe feel like you didn't really plan yet, and to almost like feel like your year is already screwed by January 24th because you like didn't start with the perfect plan. Do you know what I mean? Hey, Cindy. Oh, thanks for being here. I'm so excited it's your first live. Cool. Thank you for joining me. And to feel like, yeah, like basically I either have to have the perfect plan and I have to be executing it in a certain perfect way, right? Or I didn't. And so now my year is fucked already. And we're like 24 days into it. Hey guys. Hey Alessia. Hey Lisa. Thank y'all for being here. I'm so happy to have you. Hey Rhiannon. Awesome. All right. So if you're feeling one of those two ways, one, feel free to share it with us, but also it's totally fine and normal and okay. And like, neither is true. Like, you are not screwed if you do not already have like the perfect plan mapped out for your year. And you also don't need the perfect plan. Like, that's not really the key here. And so the way that I really believe that we move forward in business, so good. Hey, Michelle. Yes. Elise can totally relate to needing the perfect plan. Yeah. Elisa just said, I just did yoga and meditation sessions and feel so zen. Sorry, perfect headspace for some Elysium, but amazing. I love it. So where I think the middle ground is like, do you know what you're targeting this year? And that's why I also wanted to talk about it through the lens of mindset, strategy, and execution, because I think that's really important. And when I say what you're targeting, I think everyone thinks I mean money. Like, what's your Q1 target or goal or whatever? And when I say what you're targeting, what I really mean is more like, where do you need to focus with your business, in your mindset, with your strategy this year? When you can get so clear on that, it is amazing how much more successful your year can be, and how you don't actually need like the most perfect laid out plan to do it, because you are just so clear. Where I think a lot of people go wrong is they do this plan with like a lot of like, well, the plan is to make this much Q1 or this much Q2 or this much month one or whatever, right? But they don't really drill down to like, and specifically for me, how does this like, work? How does this fit? Like, what am I creating based on like the data I already have in my business? Like, most people are not doing that. They're doing it in a very like, this is just what I want. This is kind of like my arbitrary guess. And now I'm going to like try to force myself into that. And it's really, really difficult, because none of that was really based on like what was working for you, what's happened before, what the data is telling you, where you need to focus your time, how much capacity you have, blah, blah, blah. Does that make sense? So it's like, we can feel like we're making a detailed plan, but when it's just completely and entirely a guess, and like in many cases based on like a template someone else gave you or something like that, it can really actually slow you way down versus speed you up, because it's not necessarily attuned to you, your business, and what you actually need. And it can make you feel like you're behind before you've even started, right? The answer is my life. I need to get my life together. The business is fine. Well, listen, that is also possible, and that also happens. And I think, can change moment to moment too. Mandy says, I know, right? So I want to talk about this through mindset, strategy, and execution, because I think that is where we will have the best understanding of this. And I think it's also what will give you the most effective plan, as opposed to talking about it just through this lens of like, whatever, like, well, how much were you supposed to make this quarter, and how many things were you supposed to sell, and all of that, right? So we will kind of get into some of the specifics there, but just really wanting to kind of like start with that level set, because I feel like, yeah, again, like January we're in the third week of January. I feel like is when everyone is either like, oh my God, I haven't planned and I'm gonna like have a terrible year, or when people are like, oh my God, is my plan going to perfection already? And if it's not, I feel like I'm gonna have a terrible year. And like none of that is real. So let's talk mindset first. So I think there are two pieces here that I want to talk about that are really important. So specifically this year, I really do believe that our industry is going to go through a lot of changes. Y'all already know I believe this because I've been talking about the NFT so much and how I think our space is changing a lot. Do I think all of the changes will happen this year? No, but I do think the online world and environment that we're in is going to be accelerating its its pace of change, the speed at which it changes rapidly. I'm like, I don't know about that one. Rapidly in the next few years. And I think it's really important to kind of get your mindset prepared for that now, not in this like super freaked out, like, oh my God, change is coming. How do I prepare way? But more in the like, if I can feel like I know change is coming, so what can I do to not control it or feel like I have to, prepare for every single step, but to actually feel really, really grounded in the truth that like I can handle whatever comes, that I trust myself to learn and adapt as things come, that I trust myself to really like make it work for me in my business. Does that make sense? So the mindset isn't like, oh my God, I have to be this like super big innovator, blah, blah, blah. That's not it. The mindset is like, I can see that things might be changing. And what I deeply trust is my ability to learn, adjust, and adapt. Does that make sense? Michelle said, do you think these changes will impact different coaching spaces differently? Like if you're a business coach versus life coach, I feel like my clients are just discovering coaching. Yeah, totally. I mean, I think like that's always going to be true in a sense. I think like our audience in many ways determines how we need to adapt. So that's what's really important to Michelle, is trusting yourself to adapt for your audience, for your people, instead of feeling like there's this certain way that you're supposed to do it because like someone else is. And that's kind of that mindset too, which is like, of course, like my version of change in my particular niche is going to look different than the version of change in someone else's particular niche. But I got that, right? Yes, I deeply trust my ability to learn, adjust, and adapt. Very good. So good. Hey, Emily. Yeah, Eloise says, I agree. I feel like my clients find it advantageous just hopping on Zoom. Totally. And so that's important too. Like where your adaptation might be totally different. Like Eloise and Michelle, like, it might be the opposite. Like you might see people making these other crazy changes, and your best solution might be not jumping on board with all of that because that's not where your audience is or what they're prepared for yet. So that's something relevant to think about too, where it's like sometimes like our self-trust and adaptability is in not doing the thing when everyone's going in a certain direction, and in trusting like we know what's best and what our audience is most responsive to. So that's worth thinking about as well. But I think that's going to be so important this year because I feel like there's going to be more noise than ever telling you like what's coming, what you should adapt to, what you should change, blah, 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 right? And again, I think that's good. I mean, that's what I'm using the NFT for, is to say, hey, change is coming, let's learn together. But I also think the mindset of discernment in that is so important, right? So it's like, you can watch the NFT thing and think, oh my God, I know exactly what I want to do for this in my business. Or you could watch it and be like, that was so helpful for me. And like, this isn't the right fit. And that's where mindset comes in, is being able to practice that discernment, right? Michelle says, I feel like I have a huge seat to the future possibilities, but get time to decide what's right for my people. And it's a nice place to be. Absolutely. Yes. Tune out the noise. Pay attention to a handful of awesome people. Thank you, Emily. Like you. Appreciate it. Right. But that's totally it. And like the mindset is what is going to be so important for that, because when we're in a space where we're already getting inundated by so many things, and then let's say the speed of change accelerates even more this year. That ability to tune out noise, to know who you want to pay attention to, or to do like Michelle said, which is like trust that you have time to decide what's right for your people. All of that, it's not coming back to strategy. It's coming back to mindset. Like, are you in that mindset of like, I don't need to chase everyone. I don't need to learn everything. I know with discernment what I need, and I trust myself to handle that. So I think that that is going to be one of the most important things you could bring into 2022. And like, the more you can start grounding into that now, the more it is going to carry you through the rest of the year. And then the other mindset piece that I wanted to touch on is really figure out what your mindset work is to do, right? This is a thing that I think is so important, and I see so few people actually do and focus on, which is getting so locked in on where your mindset opportunity is. I feel like, again, it's this idea of like, we listen to everyone in our space, and it's like, I could be working on all this money mindset shit that like someone told me I should be working on, but like really my stuff is totally different than that. It's like, I have, you know, a lot of like self-worth stuff that I need to work on first. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's just an example, but it's like, we can get really caught up in this idea of like, what are other people telling me to work on versus do I know what my thing is that I really need to work on? And that's what matters the most in mindset. It would be like going to therapy for depression when really you had anxiety. Like, therapy for depression is great and useful and life-changing for some people, but if you have anxiety, it's kind of a fucking waste of your energy to be going to treatment for depression. Does that make sense? Like, that's kind of how I look at mindset work, where it's like, sorry, it takes a lot to adjust myself these days. You have to know and be able to truly pinpoint what your thing is. And when you do, you can become unstoppable because you're like, nope, this is what I have to work on. This is my stuff. This is my thing. And you keep working that. When you're like, well, I know I need to work on mindset. So-and-so says I should do this. I guess I'll do this. Like, that can actually be more harmful than helpful sometimes, because you're working a problem that you may or may not even have. And with mindset, sometimes we can even find ourselves creating problems that we do or don't have, right? Or that we don't even have. I'm sure everyone here can like nod yes to that because we've all been there, right? So like, know your thing, know your shit. If you can do that and fully trust yourself, like we were talking about, like, this year is yours, right? That's so incredible. If you're chasing what everyone else is doing or chasing what everyone else tells you you should be doing, this year is going to feel like, what's the word I want to use? Like a hamster wheel, right? Like, you're running really fast and not getting anywhere, you know? Yes, exactly. Emily, I love paying a coach who knows me and where I want to go and how to get there. Totally. Because it matters what's true for you, not what anyone else is telling you to do, right? Michelle says, I never create problems I don't have. Sure. None of us do, right? Alessia says such a great point that what we need is the mindset adapted to our needs. I worked on some blockages around abundance and money, and it was so useful because I feel like tapped into something that was stopping me in the past. Totally. Like, you might have landed on like, that was exactly the thing you needed. And it's so important to be able to do that, because that's when you're going to see real traction build from it, as opposed to it feeling like, putting in all this work, but I'm really not feeling it. Like, what is going on? And getting on that hamster wheel. Yeah, Elise can definitely relate. Awesome. And it took time to figure out what was exactly my thing. Exactly. Like, this isn't the stuff that you like maybe figure out in one Instagram post or something, right? This is the stuff that you probably want personalized support to dive into and really address. And like, maybe it takes a little bit of time, but if it takes this much time to figure it out, but it saves you this much time because you're actually doing the right work, the thing that matters, it's totally worth it. It actually speeds up your process considerably, you know? So those are the two mindset pieces I wanted to talk about. Decide that you trust yourself to try new things and figure out what your mindset work is. Again, this is the plan, y'all. If you can figure out those two things, you have your mindset plan for the year, right? So let's talk about strategy. So something that I want to talk about, yes, focus on the work that matters. Exactly. Thank you, Emily. Something that I want to talk about strategy wise that I feel like I've talked about tangentially quite a bit, but that I really, really want to get into clearly today is that your business will teach you what you need to know strategy wise. Like, learn from your business, right? Like, your business will teach you so much more than other people ever will. Like, I want that to be like a quotable. Your business will teach you so much more than other people ever will, right? And so here's what I mean by that. Your business is a constant feedback loop of what's working, what's not, what your audience likes, what they don't, what they're converting with, what they're not converting with, what they're responding to, what they're not responding to. Like, that feedback loop is always happening as long as you're executing consistently, which we could talk about next, right? But like, if you're showing up and doing the work, that feedback loop is constant. You will learn exponentially more from paying attention to that than you will learn from paying attention to everything else everyone is telling you to do. And so what a lot of us do wrong is we don't pay attention to what's really happening in our own business specifically. Like, we're just like, things aren't working. And then we go listen to like, 20 podcasts or whatever and feel more confused, more frustrated, like we have to try way more strategies and potentially just not that much closer to getting the thing that we want, because we're learning from what other people are saying as opposed to learning from what's happening in our own business. And your business is different than anyone else's. Like, even if you're a business coach and someone else is a business coach, like, it's still apples and oranges. It really is. And so if you're not taking the learning from your business, you are just missing out on your most important strategy opportunity there is. Yeah. Oh, thank you, Emily. Thank you for listening to Literally. Right. Like, I'm a podcast fan. Don't get me wrong. But the thing I like about Literally is you're literally hearing one person's journey and business. And so you can take pieces from that, but it's so clear that it's applied to this specific thing in this specific person, as opposed to this thing that we do sometimes, which is like apply it across the board. Like, because so-and-so on the podcast should do this, it means everyone should do this. And that's not true, So I really want that to be a goal for you this year, is like, yes, pick and stick to a strategy. I mean, that's something I talk about all the time. Like, pick one, stick to it, learn from it. But don't forget the learn from it piece, okay? Because that is when your business is going to thrive, is when you're like really in it in that way. Like, if you're spending more time learning from other people than learning from your own business, you're backward, and it's time to change that up. If you spend the most time learning from your business and then supplementing with things other people are talking about as it relates specifically to what you've learned you need to correct, that's where the magic is. Like, so if you really, really pay attention to your own business and you realize like the biggest gap that you have is, let's say conversions, let's say like your audience is growing really well, people are super interested in your content, they're engaging, they're whatever, but ultimately at the end of the day, like, those conversions aren't where you want them to be. Cool. Only learn from things that are talking about that, right? That problem, and solving that problem specifically. If you weren't paying attention to your business and you were just like, shit's not working, and then you got down this huge rabbit hole of learning all about how to do like whatever, more effective audience growth strategies, that wouldn't help, because that's not the fucking problem in your business, right? But we would all be surprised at how often that happens, how we kind of blanket it and we go, nothing, like, the business isn't working. And then we go chase all these random loops to like get it to work, when really, like, there's probably one problem, and you can probably be really, really, really intentional with what you might learn to solve that or where you might get help to solve that. But yeah, again, it's like if conversions are my issue, but I am like so stressed out that I haven't even taken time to like look at or learn from the business. And then what I end up doing is like investing in a course on audience growth. See how that doesn't work? Like we're just missing each other. Like then I have a bigger audience, but I'm still not converting. Like what the fuck, right? I'm glad it's so gold and so true. I'm glad it's funny too, Kristen, but it's so true, right? Oh my God, I'm like so out of breath too. Okay, so by the way, that's because I'm pregnant. Nothing's wrong. Just like, okay, so that's really important. So with strategy, I want you to think about like, can I make it my goal to learn as much as I possibly can from my business this year? Yes, pregnancy blood volume. Like, what the fuck? The things you don't know, right? Like, okay. I missed the gold. I'll have to catch it in the replay. Yes, totally, Michelle. Breathing in pregnancy is hard. I know this was like, I guess I kind of knew, but like not something I was super aware of. And now I'm just like huffy and puffy all the time. But yeah, I really, really, really want you to challenge yourself to make the goal this year, learn as much as you possibly can from your business. Like that strategy will serve you every time. And then, you know, that doesn't mean don't get support. Get support to learn as much as you can about your business. Like if you have support that's uninterested in helping you extract data and learn from your business, you might just not have the right support. Like that truly is going to be the thing that moves you forward the fastest because everyone's audience is different. Their audience behavior is different. Again, even like business coaching to business coaching is not apples to apples. Okay. I was vertically challenged through 3 pregnancies. Breathing is hard. Yes. Well, I'm glad it's not just me. I very much appreciate hearing that because sometimes, you know, you're like, what the heck is going on here? But like, good that it's not just me. All right, so that's your strategy. Pay attention to your business. Learn as much from your business as you can. Yes, that involves picking and sticking to a strategy because that's how we learn. So I just want to touch on that for a second. But it's like how I learn from my business is to like see through a strategy enough to actually be able to learn from it. So that's why I'm such a fan of like pick and stick because that's how I'll learn the most, right? It's almost like if, you know, whatever, like I'm trying to think of an example, but it's like, if I want my hair to grow thicker or something like that, but I try 30 things to help it do that, I really don't know what worked, what didn't, what moved the needle, what didn't. It just feels like a total guessing game. But if I like try one thing, see it through, see what the results are, try the next thing, see it through, see what the results are, like I'm really learning and like getting data on what works and what doesn't throughout that. So your business is the same, right? Like if you're jumping around too much, it's going to be harder and harder to learn from your business because the feedback loop is all over the place. If you're sticking to something enough, it's going to be really, really easy to learn from your business because the feedback loop is super clear. And that's when you're actually going to move forward so much faster because the data comes in faster, the learning is faster, and it's so, so much more effective. So really, really consider that too. Think about how can I build a strategy that helps me pick and stick to something and gather as much data as I can from my business, right? That plan will serve you so well. Anything that feels like outside of that in a sense where it's like, oh no, but I'm really supposed to be like, you know, doing this thing or learning from this person or doing this thing. If you aren't absolutely positive that that fully relates to the problem you have to solve strategically, you might be off course. So don't feel like you have to stick to some plan just because you made it. Make the plan based on what you're learning from your business, not anyone else's. Okay. So then the last part is kind of obvious, but let's go there, which is that you have to execute on these things. right? So when I was talking about the mindset piece of like, okay, you have to know what your thing is and you have to be building self-trust and discernment. Cool. You have to actually do that though, right? This is the thing a lot of us do wrong with mindset is we think about what we should be doing, but we don't really do the mindset work a lot. Does that make sense? So we're like, oh, I know I should like focus on that. Or I'm like reading this book on mindset. That's so good. Or I watched this live stream Lacey did where she talked about mindset. So great. But am I doing it? Right? Because you can listen to all the books and lives and podcasts and whatever on mindset. But if you are not putting that into practice for yourself, you might feel jazzed about it, but you're probably not seeing the results from it. Right. And the same thing is true with strategy, where it's like listening to a live is not the strategy, right? Listening to it to get an idea that like, oh, I really need to be making like weekly time to look at my numbers and learn from my business. Okay, great. That is what we're talking about. All of this has to be executed on, right? The concepts are there. You can get them, you can lock into them, you can make the plan. But if you are not fully putting your energy into that regularly, ultimately it's going to fall flat. It's not a thing, right? You can know what mindset work you need to do all day long, but unless you're doing it, it doesn't matter, right? Like you can know the strategy, but unless the strategy is happening consistently, you won't get enough data to be able to make decisions based on that. So that's where planning to me comes in is, am I planning to do those things that I said I was going to do? It's way more that than it is like, am I planning that I have to sell X amount of these packages to get this thing? It's more like, well, what's it going to take to sell that many packages? And is that the plan I'm making? Does that make sense? Do you see how we can like really make that kind of like convoluted in our brain where it's like, I make this whole plan, but very little of it is actually based on when and how all of this is getting done. And then I'm wondering why I feel behind and overwhelmed a lot. Well, that's why, because I have all these things I think I should be doing or thinking about, or goals I should be hitting, or all these, exact programs I should be selling. But what I ultimately missed was how this fits. Like, where does this execution time fit in my life, in my business, in my schedule, with my capacity, all of those kind of things. So for my clients, I always tell them I would much, much, much rather see you make a plan that's based on like process goals, like things you're going to do, than outcome goals. Like we're going to sell X amount or whatever, because the process goal will get you the result. But the outcome goal leaves you feeling really fucking overwhelmed in the process because that hasn't gotten worked out. Am I making sense here? This is where planning can be your best friend as opposed to holding you back, where it can really, really start to move you forward. And remembering that that doesn't mean you are giving up the like outcome you want. It actually means you're focusing on the thing that will move you closer to it. And I think that's just what we miss. It feels too easy almost, right? Like it's like, oh, so I just say I'm going to do this thing on Mondays and then I just do it. And like, then I'll just get what I want. Okay. You know what I mean? It feels like it has to be so much more hardcore, and it has to have like this Excel spreadsheet with all these projections and scenarios and whatever the fuck that we do to ourselves, right? No, it's just like, I know that I want to focus on this piece of my mindset work. And so how is there time every day to do that? I know I really want to be a fantastic student of my own business. Where does that fit? Like that's planning. That's what's going to exponentially increase the income and results that you actually get this year, right? Leslie says, love this part. It's more on planning the habit than the final outcome. Exactly. Right? Because the habits get you the final outcome, right? So it's like, I can be focused on the idea that I want mindset to help me make $1 million. But if all I'm focused on is like that million, I'm probably not building in the habits that actually get it there. I'm probably not building in the mindset work every day. And I think this is where it gets tricky in the online space is because we get so focused on the results and we miss so much of what it takes to actually get there, you know? And just constantly feel overwhelmed because we keep redoing the plan or redoing what we think our mindset work should be. But the truth is, we're probably not really doing it super consistently. Like, so many of my clients, when they come to me and like rework a plan, they have rarely, if ever, fully executed that plan before they're reworking it. You know what I mean? And that's the stuff that keeps us feeling really overwhelmed and like we're working super hard, but like wondering where the result is. Michelle says, thank you for the reminder to keep it simple, 100%. So when we're planning for the year, like obviously our business model is really different, but like I just will share this part. But when we're planning for the year, we're planning like, what is the shit we're going to do? We're rarely planning like, and how many would we have to sell here? And what would that look like here? And Again, my business model is different. And for some of my clients, we certainly do good, better, best and projections and stuff like that. But it's because we have data built up too. So it's like, we know what the last launch did. So we know what we can predict on this one and things like that. Right. But that gets added after we have a really clear cut plan on execution and making sure that that actually fits. So that's one last thing I want to say here too, is like, most people are not just like tying all of these three together. So they're like planning what they should do for mindset. They're thinking about what they should do for strategy, and they're not making those all live together as a whole. And so then what happens is when they go to execute, they like don't actually have the time to execute everything they've decided on, or the capacity, or the team, or the whatever. And it feels like their year is this constant ping pong of like, okay, I have a plan to do this. Wait, fuck that. This is not working. I have no time to do that. Wait, okay, I'll plan to do this. Nope, never mind. It's not. It's like, back and forth, right? But the reason the execution piece is so important is because we have to figure out what is actually reasonable there and how this all fits in. Because without that, we are living in perpetual overwhelm, but we can't pick a strategy without thinking about our capacity to execute it, or it's just a thought. It's not actually a strategy that we're going to see through, right? Hey, Ashley, thank you for being here. So you see how like, when you really think about it, it makes no sense. But again, we do it. We're like, okay, I'm going to do this strategy, this thing. I'm going to do this much mindset work. I'm going to do this. But I'm only working 15 hours a week. And so why do I feel like shit all the time? Why do I feel like this isn't working? Why do I feel overwhelmed? Right? That's why. So again, super simplistic. And I'm sure it's like a very obvious thing. It's just the thing that a lot of us aren't doing is when you're planning your process goals and your execution to make these things happen, make sure that that's truly actually realistic for what you have to give. Because just because so-and-so is doing it, you have no idea how much time so-and-so has in their business. You have no idea how much help they have. You have no idea how much team they have. Like, so many people look at me and think like, gosh, you had like 2 podcasts, you do a live stream every week, you put out so much content. Like, I need to figure out how to do that. Well, do you know how many team members I have that help me do that? Like, do you know how much time I have in my business each week? Like, that's the kind of stuff that actually matters. It's not like I'm getting the results just because I'm doing all that. I can do all that because I've gotten results that have helped me hire more people to do that. Does that make sense? So I just really wanted to say that part too, because I think that those get so fractured in our planning. Like, I would bet so many people made a strategy plan this year that had absolutely nothing to do with how much time or capacity they have to execute on it. And that's why come January 24th, they're already frustrated, overwhelmed, feeling behind, all of those things, right? We've all been there. We've probably all done that at one point or another, but it's really, really important to see that's why these pieces all fit together. And why, when you're making a plan for the year, if you really want it to feel like a best year, that has to get included. It has to be part of it, right? So I hope that helps. If you have planning questions, mindset strategy execution questions, let me know. I have a little NFT update I want to give because I've gotten a couple more questions. And so I just always like to answer those on here as well. But definitely let me know if you have questions there. And then like I'll circle back and kind of wrap up, do like a little, what's the word? I'm trying to think of summary. There it was. Do a little summary at the end. But okay, so a couple NFT questions that I've gotten. Oh, good. I'm so glad you found that helpful. Thank you, Eloise. Is around like, what about like what's going on with the current dip and like, how does that change or impact the auction? So listen, not a financial advisor here. I say this every time, but that's really, really important for me to say. But listen, I think like a lot of things are happening, right? Like, I think like the stock market has dipped, like interest rates are increasing, like all these things are happening that affect markets, right? I assume very much that this will rebound once the stock market stabilizes, but again, not a financial advisor here, but like, this is how we see things roll. But what's really important to say here is that this doesn't have to impact the auction because we're not changing the like starting rate of the auction. So the auction was always going to start at 0.1 Ethereum, and it still does. 0.1 Ethereum is less value USD at this point. So basically, like if you, I potentially just picked a terrible time for myself to do this auction because you're still, you know, bidding 0.1 Ethereum, but like the monetary value is less. And so you're basically getting Ethereum at a discount, which means you're getting the NFT at a discount. So that's cool with me. Like, I'm really not like needing this to go for a certain amount or focused on that. But I think it's just another learning of this process and just goes to show that like, yeah, this is how investing works. This is what happens. Like, we just keep going. Like I personally, again, not a financial advisor, but like am a big believer in like not trying to time the market. I think that can be a losing game. So I don't think that it's a big deal to me that this will potentially go for less or whatever. I still want to do this. Like, I still believe in this. I still believe in its value. None of that has shifted just because the market is doing the thing the market does, which is fluctuate. So I just wanted to say that, like, oh, Alessia says, I have a question on the auction. Is the minimum bet one whole Ethereum? I checked today and it's about $1,900, right? No, it's 0.1 Ethereum. So like, at this point, oh gosh, stop talking, Lacey. Hold on. It is 0.1. I just want to make that there so it's clear. Oops, I tried to tag someone. Cool. So let me know if that makes sense. It's 0.1. So I don't even know what that would equate to at this point. Good. Okay. Elisa says, such a good live. When I started to actually put my to-dos on the calendar, everything changed. Amen. Right? Totally. So anyway, just want to say that about the auction. Like, I know it can feel crazy when you think something's a certain value and then it feels like it drops, and it can be really easy to kind of get freaked out in that. But something that's like really important that I try to think about is like, you don't gain or lose until you sell, right? So nothing has changed unless you sell, right? So it's almost like if I own one share of Apple stock, right? The price value of that can go up and down, but I still own one share of Apple stock. Ethereum is the same, right? The price value can go up and down, but I still own one Ethereum. So when I'm bidding, I'm still bidding the same in a sense, right? Now, when I go to sell that, that's different. I obviously might want to wait for the market to stabilize or whatever, but the point is you don't gain or lose unless you sell. Again, not a financial advisor, but I think this is just a helpful way to think about it. And I really want to make sure we're all learning through this process. Jess, you're so welcome. Patricia says, as the value rises, the asset value increases. It's about keeping the long-term view. 100%. And especially if you're buying it now on sale, basically, and then let's say the value rises considerably, like in some ways, I think anyone who's bidding is actually getting probably a much better deal. But we'll see what happens in the next week. Like shit changes, right? That's something that's like exciting, I think, about this whole, world and the crypto world in general, is that it does change quickly. And so, well, there's still plenty of time there, but just really wanted to give that thought process in case anyone was like, oh, this feels really like scary or volatile, or like, I'm not sure if I should still bid. Like, again, do what's best for you. And I'm definitely not trying to say like, there's one way to do this, right? But I do just want to make the point of like, it's still starting at 0.1. Nothing has changed there. The market fluctuates, always has, always will. And so you get to do what's best for you, but also just keep that long-term, view intact there. And also keep remembering that the fluctuations are normal, right? I think like when we see big fluctuations, it feels like something has gone wrong. And remembering that that's normal is such a, so akin to business, right? Like that's something I talk about all the time in business, is that like, a lot of times your income is going to look like this. What's happening over time is what we have to look at. And that's exactly true with this example too, is that the market's going to do this and this. And what matters is what it looks like over a long term. The value keeps going up, even if it keeps doing these jumps, and it's all normal. And the more we can normalize that, the more I think we don't scare ourselves away from investing and trying new things. The more it feels like something has gone wrong, the more our brains kind of scare us away from trying new things, right? Ashley with the good tips here. Okay, side note, everyone should research the world of NFTs while in the bath. Soothes the nervous system while learning. I love it. I actually do that too. So there you go. Hot tip of the day. It's so true though. Yeah, I think that's really, really true. Like what matters is like, what are the associations we're creating with all this stuff? Like, so whether it's like the up and down is bad, things are scary, things have gone wrong, or whether it's like, oh, in a bath, I feel more soothed. And so I feel like more soothed around learning this topic, right? So good. Lisa says, oh, I have a very practical execution question. Yes. When I stack on another strategy, I still continue what I was doing before still. So either I work more or I have to hire help, or is there another perspective? Yeah, totally, Elisa. I mean, the only other perspective I would have there is, or you find more efficiency in what you were already doing. So like, let me just give this as an example, but it's like maybe when you first started writing content, it took a really fucking long time because you were like learning it and trying to get, the hang of it and find your flow and all of those kind of things. And maybe what happens is as you've been doing that more and more, the time that it takes shrinks. So maybe it's only taking an hour to write your weekly content instead of 2 hours. So then you're figuring out, well, what do I do with this additional hour? Like, what's the stack? So you could work more, hire more help, or find more efficiency in the thing. And like, that just usually happens pretty naturally. The more we're doing something, the better we get at it and the more we find those efficiencies. So that could be freeing up the time to stack as well. Leslie says, learning so much from even setting up the accounts. That makes me so happy. Oh, Ashley said same. So good. I really can't tell you guys how exciting that is for me to hear that. Like, no matter what happens with the auction, what bids we get, what it goes for, like just the fact that I feel like so many of us as women are like getting into this and getting excited about this and learning from this is so valuable and important. I think like even through doing this process, something I've heard and learned a lot is like so many people are saying to me like, oh, my husband's really into this. My husband thinks this is a good idea. My husband like thinks we should bid, like whatever. And I'm so into that. And like, that's like the best thing. Like, I think it's so cool. But I do feel like that like market or that evolution in terms of like crypto NFTs is so male dominated right now. And so just the fact that like all of us are sitting here having these conversations, opening accounts, thinking about this, talking about this is the coolest shit ever. I will say, I think a lot more women, like owned, created NFTs are coming out. So that's super exciting. But anyway, my point is, it just makes me so thrilled when y'all say that, because I think that that is just so cool that that's the ripple that we get to make by all of us being here and having this conversation, is that there is going to be more and more like female energy in that space. And it's not going to feel like it's just this like tech bro male dominated thing, because I think it's just naturally is more so right now. And so us being able to learn from this and do this together, it's just, anyway, I could keep going on and on, but it very much excites me. And so thank you for sharing that. Hey, Lindsay, coming in late. Can't wait to watch the replay. So good. Okay. Glad that makes sense, Lisa. Okay. Amazing. So if anybody has other planning or NFT questions, let me know, but just really wanted to touch on that one really quick and remind you that we're like a week away. Oh, there was one more question. Sorry. The other question was about how I was saying like it could take up to 15 days. That's true. It definitely can still take up to 15 days. But there are other things, like, for example, PayPal is typically less than a bank transfer, things like that. So remember that if you miss that window, it doesn't mean you fully missed it. You might just have to get creative of like putting it through PayPal as opposed to a business bank account or something like that. Coinbase is really clear on telling you like how long things can take. And so don't feel like that means you missed out. Like, you might be in the best position in some sense to buy Ethereum when it's like effectively on sale right now, and still get in time for the auction, because we are still a week away from even the start and 8, 9, 10, like 11 days away from the end. So still plenty of time there as well. Awesome. All right. So yes, love the let's take our financial power back female vibe. Signed up for a summit to learn more about crypto. So cool, Lisa. I love that. Alessia said, yes, I made a small trial today of my card and it took a few minutes only. So good. Isn't that amazing, Alessia? Like, I feel like it can feel like such a big, like, brain melting thing sometimes, but when we like get into it, follow the steps, do it, it can like take minutes. And so it just gets like super exciting to see like this isn't as like scary or overwhelming as it seems. So cool. All right. So let's do a quick wrap up. Again, if y'all have questions, let me know, but basically planning, plan way more for what you need to execute and have a really clear vision for what you actually need for the year versus going so deep into outcomes and getting so focused on those, especially if they're not based on data. So for mindset this year, I think trusting yourself to try new things and to practice discernment as the space changes, huge, and figuring out what your mindset work is and working that, and then deciding how does that actually fit in execution wise, right? We can have these ahas, but unless we're working them all the time, it's very unlikely that we're going to see the big shifts we want from it. For strategy, pick and stick to a strategy, but most importantly, learn from that. Learn from your business. Your business will teach you more than other people ever will. And when you can learn from it and then get support that specifically relates to what you learn from it, that's when you're crushing it this year. That's when you're flying and you're like, wow, this growth doesn't make sense. That happens to me with clients all the time. They're like, these numbers and this growth doesn't make sense compared to like what I'm seeing. And it's like, that's why, because you got that clear, that locked in and that targeted, and you solved for like that specific thing, as opposed to spreading yourself all over the place. And then the last part, execution. You have to figure out when you're going to execute these things. And if you actually have time and capacity, and build your entire yearly plan off of execution, off of that. Make that the focus. Don't make the focus all of the projections. You can do that after you do the execution. But when you're so clear on what the process is, how you're going to show up for it, and building in those consistent habits and knowing you have time for everything you committed to, that's when life changes. That's when business actually can feel really, really good. But again, that's when we start seeing those don't make sense kind of numbers and results, because you're so locked in, so aligned, and it's so clear that there's space for all of it. So I hope that helps. I appreciate you guys being with me as I, took 50,000 deep breaths and jumped around today, but I hope that was helpful. As always, if you have NFT questions, reach out to me, email me. I know we're kind of getting closer and closer and down to the wire. So happy to just like keep having that conversation and answering as many questions as I can there. If you have questions on MSC as you're re-listening, let me know. That's my favorite thing to talk about. And otherwise, if you comment, remember you're entered to win a $100 gift card as a thank you for being here. So I love you guys. I hope that you have a very, very beautiful rest of your week. And I will see you next Monday and we can celebrate the auction opening then. So, all right, I'll see y'all then. Bye.